Let's see, wait for some people to get in. Hi, everyone. I see a bunch of you are flooding in at the moment. Just want to introduce myself really quickly. My name's Karina. I'm the Senior Marketing and Communications Officer for the School of Law. Thank you so much for coming to our Meet the Academic session. We have 3 of our lovely academics here that will tell you more about our programs. This is going to be pretty much a purely Q&A session. So we rely on you guys having lots of Qs and us having lots of As. So if you guys want to start putting your questions in the chat, once we're finished our introductions, we'll get started on those. But Norah, you're first on my screen. So if you want to introduce yourself.
Right, thank you very much. Sorry, I'm used to going last. So my name is Norah Gallagher. I am the Academic Director of the Energy Law Institute. And actually at the moment, I'm Director also of the School of International Arbitration. I have been teaching with Queen Mary since 2002, so quite a long time. I started teaching the investment arbitration module, and now I've kind of spread out as my career, I suppose, changed over time to more energy focused, still disputes. So I still sit as arbitrator in energy related disputes. And I'm here to answer any questions you might have specifically, I suppose, on any of the energy modules or the experience or any of the extracurricular activities that we run, because we're quite I suppose, tied in with the energy community in London. We're fortunate to be based in London. And I appreciate you giving your time. I was thinking back to my own time about making the decision to come back and study a postgraduate degree. I was working as a lawyer in finance, actually, in Clifford Chance in London. My dad said I was absolutely crazy to even consider leaving such a good job and going off to study at the University of Padua. But actually, I have to be perfectly honest and say I never really regretted it. I went and studied in a public international law and have pursued since then a more international legal career. So I know it's a difficult decision, but a very exciting time. And hopefully, if you come, you'll enjoy your year with us. So welcome.
Amazing. Thanks, Norah. Ian?
Hi, I'm Ian Walden. I'm Professor of Information and Communications Law. Sadly, I've been here even longer than Norah. I started here in 1992, so I'm on my 32nd year at Queen Mary, which from one perspective shows a complete lack of imagination on my part, but on the other hand, it does show that I think the Centre for Commercial Law Studies is one of the best places to carry out my research and teaching in the world. And my specialism is technology, media, and telecommunications. We deal with all aspects of technology and developments, from AI to software licensing to a whole range of other very current developments. I am also a solicitor and of counsel to Baker McKenzie, which means I have both the experience of legal practice as Norah, as well as an academic. My current research interests are cloud computing in particular. And 10 years ago, I started Q Legal, which is a legal advice clinic for startups and entrepreneurs at the Centre for Commercial Law Studies, which is designed to give students an opportunity to actually practice what they preach, to actually advise clients and to get exposure to the trials and tribulations of dealing with clients and helping them on their way. So again, echoing Norah's comments, very pleased to speak to you today. If you've got any questions in the area of technology, media, and telecommunications, or about our extracurricular activity, particularly Q Legal, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks, Ian. You are definitely a CCLS connoisseur. Have all the answers to all the questions, I'm sure. Thank you. Vasiliki?
Thank you very much. My name is Vasiliki Koukoulati, and I'm a lecturer in tax law. I'm one of the youngest members of CCLS in this group. I joined. So I joined CCLS as a lecturer 2 years ago, but I've been in CCLS, in the CCLS academic community as a PhD student doing my PhD in tax law. I am part of the tax team, so I teach tax modules, and I'm very happy to provide any information relating to this program. We have one of the most prestigious tax programs in the UK and Europe. We offer a wide variety of topics covering different jurisdictions and different perspectives. Individuals, corporations, from US tax law to UK and European Union tax law. We also have a PhD program. This is where I started. Myself, I'm mostly interested in how taxation interacts with technology, so I'm also teaching tax and technology. Before starting my PhD, I was practicing tax law in PwC, so I also have a few years of practical experience. I'm very happy to answer any questions with regard to the tax program and our other activities, tax certificates you can acquire, networking opportunities, and so on. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. So anybody who's listening, if you have questions for any of our academics about their program specifically, or more broad questions about what it's like to be a student, extracurriculars, things like that, please put them into chat. So Ian, we've got one for you. First question comes in. Would you say that when it comes to courses and learning material, there's a significant distinction between the technology, media, and telecommunication components?
So when I started teaching at the Centre for Commercial Law Studies, we had a single option in computer law. And 32 years later, we now have a very wide range of options. We have no core components within the TMT specialism, so you don't have to do any particular courses. So you could, for example, just focus on data or specialize in data protection. We have 3 data protection options. We have obviously the possibility of doing a dissertation. Telecommunications is a very different area of law, and we have an option in that. Electronic commerce, we distinguish between teaching the commercial aspects of electronic commerce, entering into transactions and marketplaces, and we have a course on electronic commerce from a regulatory perspective, which is a more sort of public law perspective, whereas electronic commerce transactions is a private law perspective. In cybercrime, we do the substantive offences is one course, and we do the investigation of cybercrime. So we do cover a very wide area, and that's has always been part of TMT. It's both a dynamic and very substantial economic sector, but it is also, technology is horizontal throughout all companies, whether it be energy or tax or arbitration. Technology permeates every area of law. So we specialize, but I'm sure Norah and Vasiliki, teach. Well, I know Vasiliki in particular teaches technology and digital issues. So you have a very wide choice.
Thank you. I have a question for Vasiliki. Can you please expand upon some of the extracurricular activities for tax law, or if more specifically, international tax law for LLM students?
Yeah, so apart from QLegal, which of course invites students from all specializations, and I would very warmly encourage all students to engage with this community, especially those that want to acquire some practical experience. We organize events and networking that are networking opportunities, and our position in London allows us to, of course, engage with the professional community in London. So we invite tax practitioners. Other extracurricular activities are we collaborate closely with the Chartered Institute of Taxation, and we encourage students to acquire the qualification of Advanced Diploma in International Taxation. This is a highly regarded qualification for those that are also interested in the job market, either in the UK or abroad. And we engage very actively also with Bloomberg Tax, and we organize visits to the offices there. So these are some examples of extracurricular activities for LLM tax students.
Thank you. This is a question, I guess, generally that I don't know the answer to. Someone is interested in data privacy. Which LLM would cover this topic?
Okay, well, I think that's my area, TMT. As I've already noted, we have 3 courses on data protection, one on EU data protection law, one on international and comparative data protection law, and one on data protection in practice, which we do in conjunction with a consultancy which provides data protection advice. In addition, we have a relationship with the IAPP, which is the International Association of Privacy Professionals, and that will enable students to take the IAPP certifications, having done our course, at an extremely reduced rate. So it enables you, similar to tax, to actually leave the LLM with not only an academic qualification, but also a professional qualification.
Thank you. Someone wanted to know what options are available for students to do TA work.
I mean, that generally, the more likely the opportunity is going to be as a research assistant. So all academic staff have research budgets, personal research budgets, and that allows them to hire people to help them support their research. So, for example, in the past year, one of the LLM students has been helping me update my book on telecommunications law and regulation. In terms of teaching assistants, that's tends to be less common, unless Norah or Vasiliki, you have anything different to add.
No, I think that's right. Ian. TAs tend to be, well, in my experience, non-existent. They were during COVID, but tend to be more PhD students. And we do at the Energy and Climate Change Law Institute every year take on, if we have certain projects after people have done their exams, two-week internship we offer. So they'll usually then be researching something kind of new in the area. I think we had somebody come and do some research, as an example, on the kind of the increase in growth in the LNG market. So it just depends on what area is of interest at the time for energy. I'm not sure if there's anything different, Vasiliki, that you have in tax.
Yeah, I would agree with Ian and Norah that we usually teaching assistance is usually sought by PhD students, offered by PhD students, and then it's up to the individual academics to devote part of their research allowance to research activities and engage students.
It's genuine. If it's like you forgot to bring Sarah to her violin class, you left Johnny at the badminton, you're not.
Sorry, hit the wrong button.
That's okay. I've got 2 questions for you, Norah. I'll give you the first one. Someone is wondering, what is the structure like for energy and climate change? Is it more theory focused, or does it incorporate practical elements as well?
Great question. Thank you. Actually, this module is taught by both myself and Professor James Dallas, who is a practitioner of over 35 years experience in the energy sector. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm a practitioner, and I continue to sit as arbitrator in ongoing disputes in relation to energy contracts in particular. I have one at the moment in relation to a dispute in Pakistan on LNG markets. So we actually entirely take a very practical focus. Obviously, at the beginning of that module, we have to set out the international legal framework. So you're starting with the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, working all the way through to Paris. But then we specifically focus on the impact that change in international legal regime and what we call the energy transition, which is prompted because of the climate crisis. And we look at, as an example, the Climate Change Act 2008 in the UK, not because we're a UK-based university, but actually because it was one of the very first pieces of legislation globally that actually set a very ambitious net zero target. It was one of the last things that the outgoing leader did at the time. So it's 100% net zero by 2040. We also have a couple of very experienced practitioners. So a former friend of mine who is a partner in the Green Finance Department in Clifford Chance comes in, and that just shows how quickly actually everything changes. Every single lecture she's given for the last 4 years, Claire Burgess, has been significantly different because of the speed with which the green bond market has started, but now its transition bond market has changed. We look at also at incentives. So what are the tools in the kit of your governments to incentivize companies and actually us, because nobody likes change. So for everybody to have to change their lifestyle to accommodate the transition that is required. We also have quite a detailed review of the growing number. There's over 2,000 at least cases now globally that are specifically related to climate actions, whether it's on adaptation or mitigation, emissions trading schemes, which we do look at the emissions trading scheme in particular in the EU, because it was one of the first ones and this is one of the most developed markets, again, as a mechanism to ensure companies are reducing their emissions over time and that they get fined if they don't reduce those emissions. So it's very practically focused. Actually, I think there's only one of those lectures at the very beginning of the class that is similar, because obviously the treaties are old, but much of the materials and the focus changes because the energy transition is happening very quickly. It's having a specific impact more broadly, not just actually in the energy sector, but more broadly. But our focus in that is particularly on the energy market. So it's quite practical in nature. And just a point to make actually on that, we had originally, when we set it up, 4 years ago, it was only a 15 credit module, but based on student feedback, because you get to give your feedback on each module once they're complete. And we try very hard to take all the students' feedback on board because we want to make sure that we're providing the best, I suppose, learning experience for our LLM students. So we increased it to a 30 credit module based on the feedback from students, because they found each of the specific topics that are covered very interesting and wanted more time to be able to look at and discuss and go into more detail. So it actually works quite well in that regard in the 30 credits. So it's just been running as a 30 credit module for the last 2 years. So I hope that answers your question. If you have any other questions in particular about that module, it's one of my favorite modules, I have to say, that we run in the Energy and Climate Change Law Institute.
Thank you, Norah. I'll ask you, I have another question in the queue, and then I'll give you a break. So somebody asked, for the Energy and Climate Change Law course, could you please provide some insight into how the course material is kept up with in the ever-changing landscape of the field? Additionally, does the module content get updated frequently to reflect the latest developments and changes in energy and climate change law?
Again, an excellent question. I think that this would probably be true across all the specialisms, or if you're just doing a general LLM, any module you take is usually updated every year. I can tell you what it is that we do, or what I do for all my modules. So I will have prepared a handout that can range from 3 or 4 pages up to 15 pages, depending on the content for each week's lecture. And that will be posted and made available to students in advance of the lecture, along with some kind of reading, and if need be, some additional reading. So obviously recommended reading, you should try and at least read one before you get to class. And then the additional reading is more helpful for students, I suppose, if they're doing a paper or preparing for exam, that they can have some additional references there. So it's updated each year, and you're absolutely right that the energy sector in particular, because of that transition, there's a lot going on. So as I mentioned, the LNG markets have moved significantly, have become much more fungible. There's now spot markets where you can buy and sell. So there's a lot of changes that are occurring. Another, as an example, just off the top of my head, in nuclear energy law, a couple of years ago, we would never have mentioned small modular reactors, but now they're actually becoming a reality. And there's certain countries that are building those projects rather than building one big off large boutique nuclear power plants. Again, this probably is true for all specialisms, but one of the things that I really enjoy and I think is very beneficial for students is that over 50% of the students that we get in energy already have some work experience. I know we had a girl, Lauren, who had 16 years experience actually in energy procurement sector, but she wanted to learn more about the renewable sector, climate change, so she came back and did an LLM with us. So obviously, if you have very experienced, or people people from Pemex in Mexico, people who've worked for 5 or 6 years in the oil and gas sector, they'll have a certain amount of experience and they're coming to look for something else. So you have to have all of your materials up to date, and you have to keep, new cases that are coming out, new decisions. There was just recently a European Human Rights Commission decision in relation to, taken by some Swiss grannies against the Swiss government, saying that they were not taking enough action to combat climate change. And that decision was just handed down 2 months ago. So we add in those into our classes for discussion. So it's a constant, I suppose, rotation of making sure that those materials are up to date. And that keeps us up to date. And as I said, there's always people, a lot of students in the class who have some specific experience from their home jurisdictions. And I do every year say to students, you learn from me and James and the team, Carlos Bellerin, who's works for an energy consultancy firm, Silke Goldberg, who has a new electricity module, who's a partner in Herbert Smith Freehills, very experienced energy practitioner. But actually you learn just as much from all of the other students in your class and in your specialism. So yes, the short answer is yes.
Thank you. We've got some good questions coming in. What kind of industry opportunities are there in the regulation and compliance program, especially in data protection and cybersecurity courses, especially in the case study section?
So regulation and compliance is very much linked to industry. We primarily in the data protection field rather than in the cybersecurity field, but we work with companies like Bloomberg, Bank of America, Airbnb, providing opportunity, getting insights into how regulation and compliance works, and opportunities to really hear from the practitioners who work within these firms and the sorts of challenges that they face.
Thank you. I've got a few TMT questions. Next one says, Bhavya, I think is how you pronounce your name. Sorry if I completely butchered that. They'll be joining the LLM program in TMT this September. Could you please advise on the potential career paths I could pursue in the UK after completing this program?
Okay, well, firstly, welcome. I look forward to seeing you in September. In terms of career paths, obviously, going into the traditional London city law firms is difficult. There are less and less opportunities in the City of London law firms, but there are opportunities in other areas. So three areas in particular that we've developed is in the data protection privacy space. A lot of our students have ended up going to one or more data protection consultancies, whether it be a data protection officer or a researcher for a consultancy. So probably by sheer number, the largest direction of career paths is in the data protection field. But secondly, we offer a course in legal technology, and legal technology focuses on the business of law and how technology such as AI helps develop legal practice, and some of our students have gone into that area because it's a very healthy a community of legal tech startups in London, and they're always keen to have lawyers with a technical interest get involved in that activity. And lastly, we also have a course on public affairs advocacy, and that again is designed as an alternative career to say, well, you may not practice law, but the skills you have as a lawyer would make you very valuable to companies that are interested in public affairs advocacy, lobbying for change, and associated activities. So those are three areas of career that are possibilities after following the specialism.
Thank you. Um, okay, I've got a few for Vasiliki. Can you discuss the qualification process for the advanced diploma in international taxation? Additionally, would you recommend an elective dissertation to prepare for this qualification?
Yeah, so this qualification is provided by the Chartered Institute of Taxation, and we have seen an increasing number of employers that are interested in candidates to have finished with this qualification. I myself have passed 2 modules of this qualification while I was practicing, so that was something my then employer covered. The reason why we suggest students pursue this qualification at the end of their LLM degree is because there is a significant overlap between the modules and the content of the modules we cover in the LLM program and some of the courses provided by this qualification, with the most relevant ones being international tax law, EU tax law, UK tax law, US tax law, and of course, all the other modules, for example, principles of taxation or international tax law in practice, can also assist you in the preparation. So usually the way the program is structured, you can take 3 different modules, or you can take 2 modules and instead of a 3rd module, submit an essay. So to respond to the second part of your question, that would be a good option to select the dissertation for the LLM program, and then with some modifications or further expanding on some arguments, because I think the word limit is a bit higher for the added essay. You could submit the same work for the purposes of this qualification. And we organize at the end of the program or in the 3rd semester, we organize a presentation from the Chartered Institute of Taxation at our premises. So there will always be an opportunity to ask more specific questions.
Thank you. I've got another one for Ian. Are there any research projects or opportunities within the department that I can get involved in during my TMT LLM? And are there any academic journals, publications, or conferences that you recommend students in this field to engage with?
In terms of research projects, unfortunately, we can't really predict that in advance. I mean, we said earlier, research assistant posts do arise on a regular basis within CCLS during the course of the LLM, but it tends to be for particular academics that want particular support. So I can't say right now that there will be in TMT, but you know, we have 8 academics who are engaged in research. So you know, there is a high likelihood that there will be some opportunities. We also have the Cloud Legal Project, which in the past we have used LLM students to help us with our research, because obviously what you can offer us is expertise and knowledge about your jurisdiction, and the Centre for Commercial Law Studies is a inherently international faculty, and therefore we're really interested in knowing what's happening in your jurisdiction. And that's from my perspective what makes the LLM so rich, is it's not just the faculty's research experience and knowledge, but it's also the knowledge you bring, and this is something Norah's already mentioned, but the experience and the knowledge you bring creates this really incredible community of a network of knowledge, which enriches the LLM during the year, but becomes a network of contacts that you go away with and become, you know, lifelong friends that you can call upon or liaise with or just party with, you know, for the rest of your life.
Thank you. Someone said, hello, professors. It's an honor to meet each of you through this event. What extracurricular activities are available for comparative and international dispute resolution LLM students? Are the classes more theory or practical focused?
Thank you. Just to add, Ian, actually we have had 2 energy students in Mexico who actually got married after doing the LLM, so that was quite nice. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend, but there you go. Yeah, actually, when I saw that question and I went off, I had to remind myself of when the annual Fresh Fields lecture. So we have had for the last The School of International Arbitration will be 40 years old next year in 2025. It was set up back in 1985. And since that time, we have had an annual Freshfields School of International Arbitration lecture given by leaders in the field, and obviously students are invited to come along. And this year, you can put it in your calendar, it's on the Monday, the 18th of November at 6 p.m. Around the corner. It'll be in Lincoln's Inn Fields. It's in one of the old halls, the Great Hall, Lincoln's Inn, so quite close to the university. So that's the first thing. So students are invited to that. There's usually a couple of hundred international arbitration professionals at that, so it's a really good network opportunity. It's good to be able to meet people. We also organize throughout the year usually 5 what they call co-curriculars. So it'll be chaired by somebody from the School of International Arbitration. We usually have a speaker and a commentator in a particular area. So that it was designed actually by Professor Julian Liu to kind of run alongside the LLM to allow you to go in depth into a particular area in relation to dispute resolution, whether it's advocacy, cross-examination, document production, the flexibility with which, how much power the tribunal has with regard to procedure. So whatever issues are topical at the time, we try and cover in those co-curriculars, and obviously students are invited to all 5 of those. We have on occasion had one-off, if something, a decision comes out, maybe of the Supreme Court in relation to enforcement of an arbitral award or corruption. We just had a recent one in relation to an award being set aside on the grounds of corruption, and we will hold then one-off seminar on that, and students are invited to that. And then again, because arbitration usually has, the specialism usually has in dispute resolution at least 60 or 70 students, there'll be 2 student reps appointed, and then the student reps are encouraged to organize actually more student focused. So they'll organize an event, oftentimes around career, where they bring 3 or 4, maybe 5 different law firms all in, so they can discuss potential career opportunities in international dispute resolution. And so there's some of the kind of, I suppose, outside the classroom events that are held. And with regard to whether they're practical or theoretical, again, that will very much depend on the module. It tends to be a blend. Obviously, arbitration it's quite a practically focused specialism in any event. But obviously, you need to know, how to draft an arbitration clause, what a pathological clause or a defective arbitration clause is, what are the implications, what are the applicable law. So it will contain elements of both. Whereas, for example, the new module that we offered this year for the first time in arbitration skills and advocacy, that essentially runs through an arbitration from procedural order 1. So where you're setting out what is going to happen in this PO, which are actually loads of them are available online to read, through the presentation, both written and orally, to the tribunal. So how do you best tell your story to a tribunal to persuade them to find in your favor? So that's it's a much, almost entirely practically focused because of the nature of the module, whereas other modules will have to give you kind of the legal background and why it's important, and will be a blend of both. That would be true, say, as for the commercial arbitration modules and the 2 investment treaty arbitration modules.
Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you. Okay, this is kind of a broad question that hopefully maybe one of you can answer. My question is about the prospects for foreign students. I wanted to know how challenging it is for a foreign student to secure a training contract in a law firm in London, and that could be in general, but this person specifically asking about comparative and international dispute resolution.
Well, as already mentioned, I think it's extremely challenging. The number of training contracts in London are falling every year, partly due to the application of legal technology. So it is extremely challenging. Obviously, if you have practical experience in your own jurisdiction already, that may distinguish you. But the major city law firms like to grow their trainees from a very early stage. They tend to recruit them while they're still at university often, because they build teams. So we need to be honest with you. It is extremely difficult to get a training contract in London.
Yeah, I would just add to that. That is one of the things that has changed a little bit, probably since more so for us around COVID, because we used to organize about 8 or 9 different energy internships. So it was anywhere between 2 and actually in the Energy Charter Secretariat was about 90 days, so 3 months. Some of the internships in London were unpaid, but students would benefit from them because they get to see and sit alongside an energy practitioner, and they tried very hard, like Northern Rose Fulbright and Clifford Chance Freshfields. They tried to have something of interest and relevant to the students when they went and did that, but they a lot of them fell away because of COVID. And once you stop doing something, it's very hard. Then they kind of like, well, because of the amount of effort that went into it. So we had a much number of internships. We used to have an arrangement with the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development that they would take somebody for a month as well, but actually they have very specific criteria. So some years they're looking for somebody with a particular language that they want because they're working on a particular project. Sometimes, so we will send them candidates, but they don't necessarily always take them each year. So that's quite a competitive process. But it's still an opportunity. But I entirely agree with James that the market at the moment, I don't think it's just in London, but definitely in London where we're located, is quite sticky.
Thank you. I do want to say to everyone, we've got quite a few questions and I'm trying to get a mix from the different programs. So if we don't get to your question in the hour, I'll send in our inquiries inbox. And if I can't answer it, I'll send it to one of these lovely guys and they can give you more information. But okay, another question. In the Paris LLM, what would be the best way to go about majoring in comparative international dispute resolution whilst also effectively minoring in banking and finance law?
Well, a good question. Obviously, you have to take a certain number of credits of modules to ensure that you get the specialism in dispute resolution. But Paris you're quite lucky because there's quite a few 15-credit modules. And I actually always say to students, it's a really good idea to take something outside your specialism. So, I used to teach a lot as an example at the laws of war and human rights. But actually, if you're specializing in human rights, I would always say, well, try and take something completely different. Take something in AI or take something in energy, because it really is a great way to learn about something else outside of your specialism. And I do think with regard to dispute resolution, obviously, you're right, banking finance. I started my life, as I mentioned earlier, in Clifford Chance as a finance lawyer. So no experience is ever lost, because obviously, if you're drafting contracts in the front end, you will have a dispute resolution clause. And in fact, I've said some prayers over the years that some of the contracts that I drafted as a junior lawyer in Clifford Chance, I'm pretty sure that some of my arbitration clauses were definitely pathological. So I'm glad that they never came up for dispute, because you're negotiating those at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and it's towards the last of the sessions, and you're just like, just put it in there, it'll be fine. Whereas now I have much more appreciation of actually what's involved. So I think that you have a lot of flexibility, and there's a good few banking and finance modules offered in Paris that would sit very well alongside a specialism in dispute resolution.
And I would just add, I think there was an earlier question, it may have disappeared, about whether we teach in Paris, and we most certainly do teach in Paris. In fact, the last time I saw Norah was in Paris. So we're very much teaching across both London and Paris. Except Paris is beautiful.
Okay, I have a good question, a long question that I'm sure each of you can give a little piece on. So Alexandra says, many thanks for this webinar and relevant shared insights. Recognizing that you're all from different specialisms and that there are various other specialisms available also, I was wondering whether you could please share your views on how general/non-specialized LLM students who obviously, take a variety of different modules from tax law, TMT, and energy are able to adapt to your individual courses without having the in-depth theoretical and practical background which many of the specialized students might have.
Okay, well, perhaps I could start. I mean, I think the general LLM is an extremely good option. And that kind of follows on from something Norah said, is it's variety is the spice of life. So it's good to have lots of different areas of interest. Secondly, you perform best in the LLM if you're doing courses you really passionately are interested in and enjoy. And therefore, if they don't fit into a single specialism, but you still end up with a distinction because you've loved everything you've done, then that is much better for your future career and your sanity than it is to do something that feels like you should do it, even though you've got no real interest in it. But all our courses are taught on the basis that you can come to them with no prior background. Clearly, if you come with no prior background, you will get readings that which are designed to support you on that. But so we teach it on that basis.
Yeah, I would definitely echo everything Ian says. In fact, he's used the phrase that I tell my students, the dissertation students each year. I had a student who wanted to pick to write on the Outer Space Treaty and whether or not it was fit for purpose for the mining of meteors. And of course, her mother said, well, don't pick that because you'll never get a job in a city law firm. So I replied, I said, well, if your mum's going to write your dissertation, that's great. You pick it, that's fine. If not, you need to pick the topic that you're interested in. And as Ian said, she stuck with the topic. She got a distinction, and actually she got a great job in a commercial law firm in the city. So both parties were happy. And I think it's exactly the same with the topics that you pick. And there's no point. It's very hard to roll a stone uphill. So if you're constantly battling kind of, well, I'm just doing this because I think I get a better chance at a job, it's really hard to study. It's really hard to put in the time. Unless something really floats your boat, don't take it. And just on the specific question, as an example, this year I had a lovely Swiss student who I said, are you not doing the energy specialism? She said, no, I'm doing the general LLM. I said, well, how come you're in so many of my classes? She just happened to pick, I think, 4 at least of the energy modules that I taught on, and she just really enjoyed it and really loved it, and actually is doing really well. So I really think you just need to pick subjects that you're interested in, and you tend, as Ian's right, to absolutely do better.
Maybe I could add a last point that we have some students in the tax program that they come from jurisdictions that they prefer general LLMs. I guess potentially because the markets are not very specialized. So if they plan to go back to their countries and work in a law firm, it looks better on their CV that they have covered all these different areas of law. So that's also something, depends on someone's country of origin or their later plans after the LLM. And again, students have different aims. Some students want to come to do an LLM because they want to acquire very strong specialization, or because they want to become more familiar and engage with different topics. And of course, we at CCLS already have, let's say, a specialization, which is all the modules focus on topics that are covering commercial law aspects. So there is a lot of there is a lot of continuation among all the different modules. So yeah, it's totally a very strong degree to do a general LLM. You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Thank you. I'm in Department W, so I have to keep muting myself because there's so many people in here. Sorry about that, guys. This is a question, I guess, kind of with people's knowledge about Paris and the job market, as it's a bit specific, but they are asking about TMT offered in Paris. Is there a job market in Paris for students with the English LLM? Does a multilingual student have good prospects, or is it more French-based?
Short answer is it's an English LLM, but it's a specialism. We teach TMT from a European perspective, so we don't teach UK law. We may use the UK as a case study, but we essentially teach the laws of the European Union, and obviously in Paris we tend to look for examples from French law, but we certainly, I certainly think the LLM would create job opportunities within France.
Thank you. We've got quite a few questions about career opportunities, job opportunities related to CMT, but also all of the programs. So if anyone wants to give general knowledge about what career opportunities are available at Queen Mary.
Well, we have a comprehensive career support within CCLS, both on a one-to-one basis, as well as numerous events where we bring in law firms, we bring in in-house counsel. I mean, and going back to an earlier answer, whilst we've seen a fall off in training contracts in the city law firms, we've seen an uptake in in-house counsel within the major multinational corporations. So that, do think of that as an alternative career. But we certainly, the careers service complements everything we do. And obviously there is always the opportunity to speak to individual academics that have an interest in your area, and we'll be able to suggest alternative possibilities. Now, in terms of Q Legal, which I mentioned earlier, Q Legal, as well as providing advisory services, we also offer internships and externships, and we work with small companies such as Bloomberg, Baker McKenzie, CMS, Bank of America, GSK, Airbnb. So lots of companies are opportunities for you to go and practice what you learn, which includes, for example, in the energy sector, we work with fusion reactors, we work with EVA turbines, and we work with About Energy. So we have so many relationships with those that actually do within this business, because one of the unique features of the Centre for Commercial Law Studies, when it was established in 1980, was to bring together legal practice and academics, and that spirit and that informs everything we do.
Thanks, Ian. You can say what you want to say.
Maybe something more specific for our specialization, tax law, that there are many opportunities in the so-called Big Four accounting firms, PwC, Deloitte, KPMG, Ernst & Young. And we have alumnus that are already that have found opportunities there. They have acquired experience there. And one of our professors, Joyce Vastisale, used to be a partner in one of these firms. So she also has a lot of experience, and we invite practitioners from these firms for networking opportunities.
Thank you. I have one for Norah. Are there opportunities for students to engage in discussions or projects related to current trends and challenges in climate and energy law?
Well, yeah, so energy and climate change law module is actually assessed by a maximum of a 7,000 word paper. So obviously some modules you actually get 5 topics and you have to pick one. But what James and I do is we say to students, you can pick any topic you want, which gives you then the flexibility to focus in on a particular area of interest. Some students like to pick a development in their home jurisdiction. We had a very interesting student from Timor-Leste that wanted to specifically focus on his jurisdiction and how their government were going to try and meet their climate targets. So very interesting. So what you do is you let us know the topic, and because we have to approve it to make sure it falls within the remit of the module. And of course, this is very important for energy, that it's not just a policy paper, because it's so easy just to write all about policy and not actually have a legal focus. So we have to make sure that it has primarily a legal focus. Now, you can never really strip the policy and politics out of energy, but that's one of the things that we do. So you have obviously that flexibility. James and I, for the energy specialism, also went old school, and we retained, there's a mandatory dissertation requirement. We talked about it a lot. There are some specialisms where it's optional, but we felt that given our experience in interviewing and recruiting in the City of London, for me, both at Clifford Chance and Herbert Smith, and for James at Denton's for 30 years, we just felt that was really important, that students have to do a significant independent piece of research in order to be able to get their LLM. So obviously, again, there you have flexibility in choosing a topic of interest that can focus in on a climate-related or energy transition topic. So yeah, it's inbuilt in many of the modules. Some of the modules, like energy law principles, are still an exam, so there's not much flexibility there, but it's taught in a slightly different way to make sure that you know what information you need in order to be able to pass the exam. So, but other modules, yes, definitely there is that ability to be able to choose topics.
Thank you. I see Ian responding to some messages in the chat. I really appreciate it. There's one at the bottom that just came in who's asking questions about they work as a legal journalist. So if you want to have a look at that, well, I ask another question. Another one for Norah, very popular. What is the course structure for comparative international dispute resolution, and which subjects emphasis shall be which will be the subject's emphasis be placed on?
Okay, well, obviously that will be very specific to students themselves. We try and offer a range of modules in the dispute resolution, everything from ADR, so alternative dispute resolution. People think, oh, well, we're just doing, combative, either litigation or arbitration, but actually we also have a range of modules that cover negotiation, mediation, so what I would consider to be the steps prior to an adversarial process. And in fact, I do say to students, negotiation is a life skill. It becomes very useful. I know Ian said varieties of spices of life, but when you're stuck like me, having been married for over 24 years, trust me, negotiation skills are really important. So no matter where you end up in life, some of those skills in those modules are really, really important. And then some other students prefer to actually pick specific adversarial modules. So on international commercial litigation, international commercial arbitration, investment arbitration. It was a question earlier on whether or not you have to have specific knowledge to do any of the modules. The only one definitely that Professor Maxi Scherer says, the energy and arbitration module, that in that module that's taught in the second semester, she does assume that students have a certain basic knowledge of how the arbitration process works. So, but we tell students that in induction, so therefore it would be useful if you're going to pick that module that you pick an commercial arbitration module in semester one, so that you're more familiar with how to start an arbitration, what goes on in an arbitration, what's document production, so that when you get to energy and arbitration, you're familiar with that process. So it really just depends. We have very specific boutique areas like sports arbitration. It's very specifically focused just on what goes on, obviously very relevant at the moment with the Olympics ongoing. How do those disputes arise, whether it's doping or some sort of other regulatory issue that arises? How quickly will they be decided? Because obviously if you're waiting to compete and not compete, you don't want to have to wait 18 months for a decision. We also have, as I mentioned, the skills and advocacy. It runs in semester 3. It's new this year to London. It had previously been taught in Paris for the last at least 4 years. And then some people are interested in the construction arbitration module. So it really, I suppose, just depends. Some students in the dispute resolution specialism will choose a range. So they'll do one ADR module, so alternative dispute resolution module. They might do one commercial arbitration module, one investment arbitration module, and then pick maybe something more specific. So it really just depends on what area you want to focus. And obviously, if you really just want to know a lot more about arbitration and how it works, well, then I would be recommending to you that you take commercial arbitration and investment treaty arbitration. Not necessarily both investment treaty arbitration modules. It is, again, a very specific, in my opinion, more interesting side of dispute resolution, because it involves a state. So it's mixed arbitration, but very interesting to do, to see how that has developed, again, quite significantly changed over the last, well, since I was involved in my very first investment dispute resolution case back in the late 1990s. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm aware we've got like 6 minutes left. I want to wrap it up on time. So I'll ask 2 quick questions, a general one for Vasiliki and then a little one for each of you guys. And for anyone who's watching and we haven't got to your questions, I apologize. I have popped in our pglaw-inquiries@qmul.ac.uk email in the chat box, so you can send them there and we'll get to them. But one general question, I'll ask this to Vasiliki, and I see Ian also just answered it, but what sort of advice would you give to students studying postgraduate law in terms of making time for studying, things like that?
I guess, yeah, this is the question for someone studying for the first time a postgrad degree. Yeah, so I think, as we said before, it's important to make a very good selection of modules that are modules that you are interested in the topic. And the reason for that is because what will determine your performance and your enjoyment of the program is how engaged you are. And this, of course, is affected by the interest you have in the topic. And then some more general advice or tips is to try to engage with the module throughout, meaning both, of course, participating in the classes, actively read the materials that are provided before the class, and engage with your classmates, and familiarize yourself with the available material online and libraries. And that's another very positive aspect at CCLS, that we are in the center of London, and you have access to many different libraries, including the Institute of Advanced Legal Studies library. So I guess, yeah, that's it's important to be very engaged throughout the program and ask for advice from your teachers, engage with your cohort. Yeah, some very general tips.
Amazing, thank you. All right, so just to wrap it up, fun question for each of you to brag about your programs. If you guys can each say in maybe like 2 to 3 sentences, what do students love the most about studying your specific program? Oh, you're on mute, Ian.
Well, in the field of TMT, yeah, the subject is never far from the news, and because as such, we're always, engaged in fierce debates about some of the concerns and topics and how to deal with particular issues. But we also have a very well-established practitioner input from extreme, over the years, we know who teaches well. So it's a very good teaching faculty.
With regard to the tax program, I think it's the big selection of modules. We have students that are interested in specializing in tax. They can cover many different topics from different jurisdictions: individual taxation, corporate taxation, tax and technology, emerging markets, tax administration. It's a really very big selection of topics. And my colleagues and myself, we always get very positive feedback from the students. So this is also, I guess, supported by the way we teach. And then all these opportunities that they have, for example, they can attend the International Fiscal Association UK branch events that are happening on a monthly basis in London, and that's a very good opportunity. Yeah, so these are some of the things I enjoy.
In energy, actually, I'm going to say it's our enthusiasm. James and I really love the interaction with the students. We have oftentimes students from, right across the world. One class had 36 students from 32 different countries. So we teach, but we also learn. And I think that that's super. And students really enjoy that interaction. Also, we bring in kind of experts in the field. So students see, it's not just hearing our voice all the time. So we do have and are quite pleased with the range of visiting, I suppose, people we have in energy. And then finally, I just think that we organize some super events. We're very busy on the extracurricular side, and students really like, again, getting access to practitioners in the field, experts in the field, the annual Clifford Chance Energy Lecture. We've had everybody from Lord Brown, former CEO of BP, to Lord Lamont. So we have, students get invited to that. They get to meet other people who are interested in the area of energy. So yes, we're very energetic and passionate in that field. I'm not going to say too much about the dispute resolution because I know that Professor Lucas Mostelis will be having a session on the 22nd of August, and we'll probably go into a lot more detail in that. But for sure, for the School of International Arbitration, we are the oldest dedicated institute teaching international dispute resolution. Thank you.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys so much, both you who are watching the presentation and to Norah, Ian, and Vasiliki for taking an hour out of your day to do this. If you guys have any questions, like I said, email our PG Law Inquiries email, which is in the chat, and this recording will also be sent out. But thank you guys so much for your time and have a lovely afternoon.
Bye.
Thank you. I hope to see some of you in September. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Whether or not you're doing energy.